G'day guys, welcome to the Thunder from Down Under podcast. I'm your host Graham Solomon, and as always I ask you, if you're watching this live or on a replay, smash that like button, hit the heart button, give us plenty of love, and go to the Graham Solomon Thunder from Down Under YouTube channel, subscribe, belt that subscribe thing off the wall so that you can become part of the family, and when we go live, hit the bell so when we go live you get notified, and then bang, you're in the Thunderdome, you're ready to go, and you're part of the family. Now, we've got a special guest in today. He's a champion, this guy. He has done it all. He's been decades as a realtor, decades as an investor. He's currently on the coaching team at the SMS, Social Media Blueprint, SMB, and he's a valued part of the team there. His backstory, he started off in Hollywood. He was an actor, and as you can see, he quite often did a lot of stunt doubles for Brad Pitt, a lot of his stunt work, and was a body double. So without any further ado, I'm going to introduce someone that's known as Coach Jay Theriault. I don't know, Theriault?
Perfect.
I've never said your last name before, Jay. So welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you here, and I know that the audience will get plenty of thunderbolts out of an experienced guy like yourself. So thanks for coming in.
Yep. Great to be here.
Now, Jay, go back, take us way back when, back in the day, you're an actor. You're an actor. I mean, that really must have prepared you to be a wholesaler, to start off as an actor.
When you start off as an actor, it's the perfect transition to then become a realtor or anything in sales, anything sales related. So yeah, I back in my 20s, I decided I wanted to be a famous actor. So I was living at that time, my family's all from the East Coast of the US. I was living at that time in North Carolina and with my family. And then I was 23 years old. So I decided to move up to New York City and start my big career. I was there from the time I was 23 to 33. So from 1980 to 1990, then moved out to LA for a few disastrous years. And we just decided as a lot of artists, when you get to be in your early 30s, you're kind of like, I think I want to own a car, just the small things, just the little things. So we decided to actually move my wife is originally from Minnesota. I met her in New York. She was much more famous as an actress. She was on television, on the soaps and all that kind of stuff. And because I had hair and I was, 20 pounds lighter, I was good looking back in that day. So we decided to move here from LA to Minnesota, to the Twin Cities in Minnesota, which is where she's from. So we figured we'd knock out half the distance family trips per year by living in one of the communities. And so I started in 1994, the day after we arrived, I started in real estate classes to get my license as a realtor here in Minnesota. And I've been a realtor since 94, and we've been investors since 96 is when we bought our first property. So we've kind of seen it all. We started out in a very normal market where, you put a property on the market for 30, 45 days before you'd get an offer. And then you would, take another month or so to close on it. So that was kind of the normal market with the normal amount of homes on the market and the normal amount of seller or buyers. And then it went into kind of a feeding frenzy when they dropped the interest rates down in 96. They dropped them down from, I think when I started, it was about 8.5%. And then they dropped them down to 6.5%, brought a lot of buyers in the marketplace. And then all these sellers that had homes, that they had purchased 10 years before at interest rates of 12 and 14%, refinanced, took all the equity out of their house. And so all of a sudden they couldn't move because they had already eaten up all their equity. So it created a housing shortage. So we had this, ton of buyers and not enough homes for sale, which what happens drives the prices up. So we went through that market in the late 90s into the early mid 2000s. And then of course, 2008, everything fell apart. Market crash, second mortgage market blew up. And then we went to the downturn, and, then we went back up after 2012 to kind of, those two pre-2005, 2006 levels in prices, and then skyrocketed a little bit above that. And now we're getting ready for, I think, another downturn in the market. So the point of what I've learned over the past 27 years of doing this is, don't worry about it. The market is always cyclical, and there are always good deals out there. Don't worry if your market where you're marketing to, or where you're living, or you're trying to invest or buy is still at the top of the market. Don't worry about that. You will always find a deal. One of my mentors here in the Twin Cities is a guy from Minnesota, and I'll tell you, it's been a marvel watching him over the past 25 years that I've known him. And he has gotten deals in every market, when the market was crashed, but when the market was also at its peak. So it taught me a great lesson. There's always deals. You just got to be willing to be a farmer and be out there in the field every day.
So it's more of a marathon than a sprint, isn't it? That's what you're saying. It
really is. For people that I meet that are kind of brand new in real estate investing, obviously we want a deal today, and we want to make $10,000 at the end of June, right? That's kind of our normal mindset. You hear of all these people, with a Lamborghini lifestyle. It's BS. If you really want to have a great business, know that you've got to learn. You've got to practice your craft, because this is a craft. Talking to sellers, finding out what their wants and needs are, finding out what their situation is, then trying to put a deal together that's a win for them and a win for you. And then, what am I going to do with this property now that I have it under contract? Am I going to keep it? Am I going to sell it to another investor? So all of this just takes time to learn. There are people out there, and this, Graham, too. There are people out there that have been, on YouTube studying for 10 years. And you say to them, so how many properties have you purchased? Well, none, but we're just about there. We're kind of and it's like, no, you gotta get out there and take some chances, take some measured risks. I've got a purchase agreement sitting here on my desk. Every time I write a purchase agreement for a property, I'm talking to this guy in the state of South Carolina, who's, mom and dad owned this home. The mom passed away 3 years ago. Dad went into a nursing home about a year ago, and nobody's paid the bills. So here I'm coming in, trying to buy it from, at a reduced price, even below the market value. He's been approved for a short sale. And so I'm trying to buy it. But every time I write up a purchase agreement, every time I get nervous again, like it's my first one. So that never goes away. The nerves never go away, but you just got to push through it and submit the offer.
Yeah. And like you said, you're coming up as a realtor and an investor, you're coming up in a couple of years, 30 years. So you've seen the cycles, you've seen the people come in and out, and you've seen the people that have lasted the journey, what they've done to be able to stay. And like you're saying, consistency, commitment, all those things. You've got to look at the long game, don't you? And I know with you, Jay, like networking, I mean, as a realtor, you end up with massive networks. And as an investor, your advice would be to probably network as well, because it takes time to build up networks in markets and get to know the right people, to know who's who in the zoo. So I'm pretty sure after nearly 30 years in both genres that you've built up a fair bit of a network.
Yeah, the business has changed 150% from when I first started. When I first started, you wrote a purchase agreement, and then you had to run it in your car over to the seller, get them to sign. And then when we first started using fax machines in 1995, everybody was like, oh my God.
It was like something off Star Trek.
Yeah, it was the greatest thing since sliced bread. And of course, now everything is done online. And like from your marketing, you can be anywhere in the world and market to any market in the US. And you set up your presence, you get your partners on board, and partners can be be people with money, but they can also just be people that you're selling properties to. I consider all of my handymen, my carpenters, my electricians, I consider them partners as well. So the networking, is now a huge thing that will generate for free, because you don't necessarily have to advertise for money anymore. Using your money, you can just really develop a network of people that will send you leads, send you deals that they've already talked with the sellers about.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thunderbolt that you give us there, because not many people mention that. It's like you said, it's all Lamborghinis, it's all this. But what you are actually doing is when you're putting something under contract and you're structuring a deal, you're involving a lot of times title companies, realtors, contractors, inspectors. It's an abundance mindset type of thing. If you can start thinking that my business affects other people and is prosperous for other people, and the whole chain goes on, it's right. Actually you do realize how big your network is becoming, and then it works in reverse. All of a sudden, you get a lead come in from one of your contractors that says, "Jay, hey, I was thinking of you. This guy's house is run down. He can't put it on the MLS. He wanted to know if I know anyone that buys houses cash. Jay's the man." So it works. It works in both ways. If you're giving out, things come back to you in other ways, don't they?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really amazing. I mean, now we can go into a market like we're kind of opening up for ourselves, because eventually we'll probably move down there. So we're picking a place in the state of South Carolina, kind of an area from about mid-state all the way up to almost to the mountains. So that's kind of our new marketing area. But the beauty is now today, for free, you can develop this network, so what we kind of teach in Social Media Blueprint is, which I didn't invent, but it's absolutely brilliant. You can join these Facebook groups down there of investors. You can then scroll through all the posts there, and you can find out, okay, so who are the flippers? If you see somebody advertising a property, you can jot their name down. You can direct message them and say, hey, I'm a part of, the Greenville area, South Carolina investors on Facebook. I saw that you've got that property 123 Main Street, that looked really interesting. Tell me a little bit about that. And then you can then, say, hey, if you got 15 minutes for a phone call, what I'd love to do is find out a little bit more about you. We're doing a lot of marketing in the area, both offline and online. And I'd like to, some of the leads we're looking for a specific thing to kind of build our real estate portfolio. And some of the leads that we get in just aren't appropriate for us. So we've got some, people like yourselves that are buying for cash, in the area. If you got 15 minutes, I'd love to find out a little bit more about what you're doing, what your goals are, what kind of, properties you're really looking for. And then you have that conversation with them. So you're online for free. You're picking up buyers. You're picking up wholesalers. You're picking up people with money, that might be in, like for us, we've got self-directed IRAs and, 401ks. So we can invest, right, with another investor that can find a deal. I'm also looking for contractors and, handymen and ... So doing this all remotely, I didn't believe it really could be done, but it absolutely can. You build out this team, this virtual team, and, then you do a good job. And when you promise something, you come through, even if it is, and I mean, even if it is, listen, I'll give you a call tomorrow afternoon and I'll let you know kind of what we're thinking. Even if you haven't made a decision, you call them tomorrow afternoon, and then they know, wow, this person really comes through. They said they called me at 4. They don't have a decision yet, or they didn't get their money or whatever, but they did call.
Yeah.
And in our business, because the interesting thing is, even though we have a million of us, right, in the country that are working at this and investing in real estate, when you think about it and you get to know it, the community is actually really small. It's that 80-20 rule, that Pareto's law, where 20% of the people do 80% of the business. This is true in our industry. So you want to be part of that 20%.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? The amount of times you cross people. Like, it's a big country, and there's a lot of Facebook groups. There's a lot of stuff out there, and you just seem to see people all over the place that you've seen before. So, yeah, it is a small industry in one way, even though it's a large industry. Now, Jay, I got you on because I'm going to get you to put different caps on at different times. So I
Yeah.
wanted to get the realtor cap because with the current circumstances and since COVID and things sort of blowing up a bit more virtually, people are going into different markets now. Now, one of the things that I've noticed is investors and realtors are starting to, this standoff they used to have, they're starting to actually come together a bit and work together. Not all, but a lot of realtors are starting to see the value in having investors that do off market stuff sort of, on or off the books, so just there. And investors are starting to say, realtors, they're good to work with. Why aren't we working with them? So it's broke down a few barriers from the old traditional methods probably that you've seen in the past. Now, as a realtor, I come and I'm going to introduce. I want to hit Jay, the realtor. What's the best way that I can prepare myself and come across professionally? Because I know I have spoken to other realtors and they've said, look, some wholesalers especially can be a little bit unprofessional. So give us a scenario, for the listeners of what you would recommend for an investor that was going to come and approach you, how to prepare themselves.
Yeah, I was so glad that you reached out to me, and especially, with my expertise as being a realtor. So in my 27 years of doing this, I was primarily a residential realtor working with normal buyers, and home sellers. We were investing personally. I worked with a few investors over the year, but to be quite honest with you, I found that they were kind of a pain in the butt to work with as a realtor. And the reason is why? Because they will always want a deal, right? They don't want to pay retail. They don't want to pay the full price, that somebody's asking for. So I think for the Thunder from Down Under family, what people should realize is realtors are not trained in real estate investing. It's the saddest thing ever because we're working in it all day long, right? 24/7, 365 days a year. But we're just not trained. We're not trained in creative financing. We're not trained in seller financing. We're not trained in buying a property subject to. As a matter of fact, most realtors would be told by their brokers, oh, that's illegal. You can't do that. So we're basically taught a very, very cookie cutter thing. Your buyer goes to a lender and they get pre-approved. And then they get the pre-approval letter. Then you take them out to look at properties. And the same thing working with the seller. The seller, you're going to tell them, do the market analysis for them, show them what their home is worth, tell them what they need to do on the house. That could be fast and easy, that they could do some fix-ups to get top dollar for it. None of the other stuff regarding real estate investing comes across as so. When a realtor, meets an investor type, there's very few realtors that work with investors. Now, interestingly enough, the ones that do, and now when I look back at my 27 years, I can, in my mind, I can visualize like 6 or 10 realtors that I knew worked with a lot of investors or developers, or builders, that kind of thing. They made a ton of money because they were willing to go into an area that they knew nothing about to begin with, but then learned how to have the symbiotic relationship. So we as investors, I'm going to just switch hats for a second. We as investors, what's the benefit to us in having a realtor or 2 or 3 on board? Okay, so let's say you're working in a remote market. So for instance, me in Columbia, South Carolina. Columbia, South Carolina, kind of a bigger city. It's the capital city of South Carolina, kind of spread out. So what I'm doing is I am teaming up with 3 or 4 realtors kind of geographically, one that works kind of the middle, one that works the east, one that works the west, one that works the north, and one that works the south. Especially if you're in a bigger city where you have that kind of spread like Los Angeles or even here in Minneapolis. Minneapolis is huge, right? And one realtor normally doesn't cover the entire city. So if I team up, if I get 4 or 5 good realtors on board, what I do is I approach them and I say, listen, I'm doing some marketing, and you heard this script before. I'm doing some marketing both online and offline. And I'm looking for properties kind of like the We Buy Ugly Houses guys. Everybody seems to know that franchise in the States. The We Buy Ugly Houses guys, we're looking for properties that might need some TLC, or might have had a hoarder in there, and they've got 30 years worth of junk that needs to be removed. That's kind of what we're looking for. But occasionally I'm running into properties that I feel are much more retail. In other words, the seller's done all that work on the property, and they're really not a good fit for me, but they will be a great fit for a realtor as a listing, because the realtor is going to be able to get them a lot more money than I'm going to probably give them if they hadn't fixed up their property. So now I develop these relationships. I've got a partner that I can then send a listing to, a potential listing of a seller, and I can collect a marketing fee. So if they work with that seller, and I've got a whole system set up for that, and I'll be happy to share that with you, and then you could share that with your people. Remember that old the realtor
Yep.
referral system.
Yep.
So
And that works in reverse too, Jay, doesn't it?
yeah. And so the realtors as well, I can then say to them, so I'm sure, because I know in my own career as a realtor, I've run across properties where I walked in and I went, oh my God. And as a normal realtor, I was stymied. I was like, in my mind, I'm nodding to the seller, and I'm stepping over cat poop, and it's just a disaster.
Yeah.
Now, those, as a realtor with my realtor hat on, I'm not going to even work with them, because where do I start? So I can say to them, occasionally, I know you guys run across properties that are just disasters, and that you really can't even list, because the buying public is going to be like, oh my God, right? Working with realtors, those buyers. So if you want to refer them to me, if I buy them, I will give you a spiff, so they can be a great source. And we know, Graham and I know, that there are a lot of people, investor types, that develop these relationships with realtors and constantly market to the realtors. So the realtors on your team, the benefit for you is, if you find a property, and maybe you're doing this remotely where you don't even live there, you can call your realtor if you trust them, and if you don't feel like they're going to try to get a listing, and you say, hey, listen, I want to give you an address. Just do a quick market analysis for me. That way you get the boots on the ground in that area to do the market analysis for you. It could be a real lifesaver for you. Yes, can we do this on PropStream ourselves? For sure. Can we look it up through Zillow and, Trulia and, Redfin? We can kind of look up the property values. But if I'm going to buy a property, I also want to get that realtor's take. What do you think of that neighborhood as an investor? So these relationships are really good. When it comes into creative financing, again, realtors are not trained in this. But if you get a realtor to be able to understand what it means to write an offer subject to the existing mortgage staying in place, or we're going to do a wrap mortgage, and you explain it to them, assuming that they can get their broker, who's kind of their boss, to agree with writing up an offer that is subject to, or doing a wrap mortgage, whatever, then they could be a super good ally for you.
Yeah, and also, Jay, when the market goes sideways and down, that's when there's a lot more opportunity to do those sort of things. Like in a hot market, everyone's like, no, we can sell it for retail. Wholesaling is probably more of the creative thing. But then when there's a lot of inventory and it can't be moved, and realtors at 90 days going, wow, I'm going to lose this listing, then they become a little bit more creative and a little bit more understanding of what all that means, because they can still make some money out of it, not have a angry client and all that sort of stuff. So, different horses for different courses, I guess, different times. No, that's awesome. That is awesome, Jay, because you've just hit everything and got it all in a nutshell, that you just work off each other. And when you're dealing, like you're moving into a market that it's not your market, they actually drive the streets of that market day in, day out. They know that if you go over that highway, property prices plummet. And that's really hard to get that feel when you're doing it virtually. It's a very hard thing to do. So that's probably one of the big key points out of that, is all the other stuff, but the fact that they've got the local knowledge and you can't always get really good comps. And sometimes a realtor, their comps, they seem to be able to find stuff that you can't find through the MLS, through comping. So hit us with amazing thunderbolts there. That was awesome. So we'll get you to take that hat off. We'll go across. I actually felt like I was in a coaching clinic there. I was just like, you had me at hello. I'm thinking he's rehearsed this actor style in front of the mirror a few times because you just had me. You had me at hello. I'm like, wow, yeah, sign me up. I'll work with you, no problem. But you're right though. You know, it's just practice, and it's about just trying to get someone to understand what you're talking about without bamboozling them at the start with information. So you just slowly but slowly. So no, that was awesome. The other thing I want to ask you about is to put your coaching hat on, because one of the things, I think you explain things really well, and I've had that experience. Now, with the students that come through, social media blueprint, what do you see with certain students that succeed and certain ones that don't? What do you see is the difference? You know, like when people are starting off in real estate.
Well, again, it kind of goes back to that mindset of like for me, I'm a Virgo, so I'm a perfectionist. I want to learn everything. I want to have my box all completely wrapped and the bow completed before I'm going to present it, right? That's a perfectionist. The people that do really well are the people that learn a little bit of a concept and then go out and try it. For instance, let's say you learn a great script, and now you guys can't see it, but here on my walls, I've got all my scripts posted to my wall. So, if I'm talking to a particular type of seller or a foreclosure or somebody that's in distress, I've got all these scripts that I can access. And I think it's a matter of, and I'm still learning scripts 27 years later, I'm still learning scripts. I mean, I was listening the other day to Pace Morby. For those people that might know Pace Morby out in Arizona, I think he's in Arizona or New Mexico, but listening to one of his scripts. And then my goal is I write that down. Oh my God, that was great the way he phrased that. Then my goal is on my next call with a seller, I want to try it out. And is it nerve wracking? Sure. But is it super beneficial? So the people that I think really excel in this industry are people that are willing to make a mistake. Don't worry about being perfect. One of the things that I think separates a lot of really good investors is they're just real people.
Mm.
They don't have to be a salesperson. They don't have to come off as a performer, but they're just really listening. Our buddy Nate Armstrong, who some of your family here might know of because they might have seen him before with you. Nate is, a Midwesterner, and he's perfect in his delivery, really listening, and then asking deeper questions, trying to go deeper. I've got one of Nate's little quotes right up on my wall here because I need that reminder every now and then. One of his best quotes is, "Help me understand that."
Mm.
So the seller just tells you something, and help me understand why it's really important for you to close on your property there by the end of July.
Mm.
And then be quiet, right? So I think the people that are very successful are people that are willing to take a risk, learn a little bit, and then just go out and try it. Go out and
Yeah,
try it,
Dan,
and don't be afraid to make a mistake.
I'm pretty sure he uses that on me all the time. Now that you've pointed it out,
Yeah.
Nate Armstrong, he's just too smart for us, isn't he? But that's a lot of the people who have been in the industry a while say, you've got one mouth and two ears. Just listen. And it's hard when you're new, you want to talk and you're excited. That's another thunderbolt because Nate is very good at that, of drawing and without being salesy or what. It's just very natural to him to just listen and draw information out. So the main thing you've said a couple of key points there, but the main one is taking action. You would encourage people not to be foolish, but to take action, wouldn't you? You'd say, look to the students, even if you're a bit nervous, practice in front of the mirror, ring up some for sale by owners, slowly get your way there. But I like what you say because I used to do the same thing. I used to have scripts on my wall, and I'd have my computer, my dialing pad, and I actually found it better in the end to have key points because if I was trying to read off a script, I was like, because I left school at about 15, I was like, and it didn't sound natural. So I just had all the key questions in a row. But yeah, it's. I think you're right, Jay. People that seem to take instant action and imperfect action seem to just skyrocket.
A couple of other things that I've learned over the years is always come from curiosity. And so in my mind, I'm always trying to like figure out what their next sentence is going to be, right? Deadly. So come from curiosity, ask more questions, ask them to elaborate. Well, what does that mean for you? Boy, and if you get a feeling from somebody, it sounds like this is going to be kind of a hard sale because this was your family home.
Yeah.
Talk about that. Don't be afraid to get into it. People do business with people they know, like, and trust. And so we only have an opportunity to do that, most of us, on the phone. So just be a real person, come from curiosity. And then one thing that I'm having to relearn every day is don't assume. If a seller tells you one thing early in the conversation, I'm only going to take $350 for the property. Don't assume that that's the case. Just get into it. Okay, yep, that makes sense. So let me write that down, $350. Okay, good. So tell me a little bit about the house. Get off the price and get on to talking about the house and talking about their situation. And then later you can come back and say, now you mentioned after you developed a little bit of a rapport, you mentioned $350. Now, have you got flexibility on that? Because obviously I've got to go do my homework and see what would make sense. And one of the other things, Coach Randy over at Social Media Blueprint, I picked up his line and I love it. Hey, my goal as an investor is to get you the most amount of money in your pocket that I possibly can. That's my goal. And then also make it a deal where it makes good sense for us business-wise. Yeah. But that's my goal. So on the $350, have you got flexibility on that? Because again, we're going to be all cash and we can close whenever you want it, blah, blah, blah. So what I found out is I make these assumptions and I come to a conclusion, which oftentimes is incorrect because I didn't ask enough questions.
Yeah. That's true. That's very true. All right. Now, as a coach at Social Media Blueprint, we've had a lot of students come through, but who's been your absolute favourite Australian student that's come through? Is there anyone that stands out at this stage?
Not real. No, of course you do.
Am I the only one that never come through from Australia? That's the next question.
I think we've only had you, and I think we had one other person. And I don't know whether they were from Australia or New Zealand, which I know there's a big difference.
Yeah, they were cousins over the ditch.
But
yeah.
You always blew my mind because talk about being able to not being afraid of doing things that other people are not doing. The fact that you've got to do your marketing when it's nighttime over there. So you're pulling the graveyard shift, as we call it here. And then you're sleeping during your daytime over there. And the fact that you are doing this remotely and in another country, I don't think a lot of us would have the fortitude.
Yeah, well, you've got to love a challenge. You've got to love a challenge. You got to throw a new challenge up, just as you're getting used to life. Throw something else in there. So look, there's plenty of people that go and do night shift jobs in their own environment. But I thought, what a better way. If you're going to do night shift, do it from home. Find an industry that you can do it from home. That way, if you need a bit of a kip during the day, you need to have a bit of a nana nap, you can just shoot off and have a sleep. But it is. It's growing though. You've got Ili from he's from Serbia. There's and I know a lot of people in Israel and around the world that are actually doing it now because the US market is absolutely the best real estate market in the world. I always say, God bless America when I look at real estate in America. It's just amazing what can be done over there. And I reckon the rest of the world needs to change their rules and catch on because it's amazing. Now, the other thing, Jay, I sort of jumped into the coaching, but with the investing, did it take you, because you said as a realtor you're trained a certain way, did it take you a while to let go of that realtor hat and be able to think like an investor? Because they do think differently. And how did you make that transition?
That is so true. I bought for years ago, I bought like a $7,000 course on wholesaling, which I'd heard about kind of in the periphery over the years, but I'd never really done any research on it. So anyway, I finally bought a course, took the course. Then these guys happened to be having their yearly family meeting, right, for all the people that had taken the course and gone through it. So I went down to the meeting to kind of meet these two young men that had put this all together. And as I met one of the partners, I said to him, yeah, I've been a realtor for 25 years. And, I'm really looking forward to this wholesaling. And he just kind of went, and I kind of looked at him and he goes, you're a realtor. And I went, yeah, what's wrong with that? He said, can I be honest with you? And I said, sure. And he said, you're probably not going to make it as a wholesaler. And I was like, what are you talking about? I know contracts inside and out. I know negotiating. I know property values. He goes, yeah, but whose best interest have you been representing all these 25 years? And I said, my clients, of course. And he goes, yeah, now you've got to represent your best interests.
Mm. Yes,
and I went,
shift.
And he said, because you're going to go into this thinking, oh, this could be a listing or it could be an investing opportunity. And boy, if he wasn't right, for a year and a half, I denied that. Oh no, and I thought to myself, hey, this is a good listing opportunity potentially for me doing this marketing, right? And what happened was I completely blew it. The people would be so confused. I would say to them, we could give you $150 for your house, but on the other hand, you've done it really well and you've done all these fix-ups. We could also throw it on the market for you and try it at like 175, 180. And they were like, you just offered me 150, So what I did was, as a realtor now, any leads that I get here locally immediately go out to another realtor and I can get a referral fee. So it's, so it's a beautiful thing, but it took me a year and a half, almost 2 years to stop and only have on one hat, which was the investor. Because then I could have that on. And I'm trying to create a win-win. Every client, every person we work with, I'm trying to create a win-win.
Yeah. I've heard that. I've heard that it's a real wrestle mentally to shift over to an investor, because it's like you said, you've just explained it why. But even you were warned about it, you knew about it, and it still took 2 years to do it. That's how strong our belief systems get formed, don't they, in our training? Now, Jay, we're sort of heading up now. I don't want to keep you too long because I know you're probably ready to go out and sign up a deal. So I've just
I got to send this off to the seller.
Yeah, you've got stuff to do. I know you're a very busy man, and I appreciate your time coming on. You and I can actually talk underwater with a mouthful of marbles. We could spend 4 hours talking. We've done it before, so I'll keep us rolling. I've got a quick quiz, some questions for you, and
Good.
Also, you mentioned Coach Randy, Dr. Phil. We actually need subtitles when we start talking together. So, our accents are pretty strong. So what I'll do is I'll jump straight into it now. I'll ask you these series of questions that I've written out, and we'll finish up on that. Before we get stuck into it, I'll need you to get in the zone. Thanks for coming on, and thanks for giving us that perspective. For people, I know a lot of people are starting to reach out to realtors and vice versa now. And it's just really good to have that perspective on how to approach people and how to network. Like you said, jump in Facebook groups. There is actually some Facebook groups getting around now that are realtors that invest themselves and work with investors. So there you go. There's a place to jump in and start networking with realtors. But I in Australia, we can only deal with realtors. So I go out for dinner. I go down to the local footy club with my agent down here. We've been friends for 13 years. So it's a different. I sort of look at what happens in America and go, you've got to befriend realtors. They're part of the deal, but it's a lot different over there. So I encourage people to build the bridge, smoke the peace pipe with the realtor, and really start working together. But here's the questions now. Jay, and this is real estate based. In real estate, what is your superpower? What would you say your superpower is?
Really, my superpower is I'm a people person, being able to connect with people, and then learning exactly what you just said. I've got one mouth and 2 ears. I'm an Irishman at heart. So I've got lots of stories from the past 65 years for me to turn that off and listen.
All right.
Really
Well, I'll cut you
listen.
off there. That's a good enough answer. These are short answers. What is your mission in real estate? What is your mission? Your why and
Our
real estate?
short-term mission, right? Our short-term mission right now is to create $20,000 a month passive income.
Yep. Beautiful. Good answer. Now, you've been in it for nearly 30 years. What does real estate mean to you?
Real estate to me is one of the biggest opportunities that people can get into to not only make money, but actually make a huge difference in the world. We're providing housing, which is one of the most important things on the planet.
Yeah,
So
shelter.
I don't think we should take that lightly.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. Now, I want you to get your crystal ball. Get your crystal ball out. Where do you think the real estate industry in the United States is at the moment? Where is it and where's it going? Like,
Well, I
your
think
opinion.
we're going to see a little bit of a downturn. We can't help it. I mean, if you look on Zillow right now, you're going to see a lot of price reductions. So I think we're going to see a little bit of a downturn. Nothing like we saw in 2008, 9, and 10 and 11. But we will see a little bit of a downturn. But man, that's also huge opportunities for us. Make sure you're thinking, instead of, oh, now I can't do this, make sure you're thinking of, what's the opportunity here that I might be missing?
And maybe listen to people like Pace Morby that are in the creative space, because they're probably excited at this point because there's more creative deals that are coming up. Now, we've had the blow up of virtual wholesaling from COVID, from what happened with COVID. Where do you see, especially the wholesaling and the investing and the creative space in 5 years from now? How do you see that looking?
I'll tell you, I really believe we're going to be breaking down more walls. Nothing against realtors. They've been a very necessary tool in the marketplace. But I really think we're going to see more and more people like us getting out there and marketing and developing relationships with customers, meaning people that aren't in this industry professionally, but could use our help.
Yeah,
I think there's
so
huge opportunities.
it's going to close the gap, almost like little bit of a disruptor. The
A little
market
bit.
share is going to open up a bit more, I think, because realtors have had such a big, and there's a lot of realtors they've got a realtor's license, but they're investors and they've got the realtor's license and they're starting to, I can see that as well. I can see a big move to that. What was the next one? What makes you the most nervous in real estate? What gets you freaking out?
For me, really, lack of knowledge. It's still 30 years later. Ruth and I, my wife, we're on YouTube at 10 o'clock at night before we go to bed, listening to somebody, listening to you, listening to your podcast, trying to continue to learn. And so weekly, what I'm trying to do is go, where are my gaps? What are the holes? What are the things that are keeping me back? If it's a lack of money, if it's a lack of knowledge on how to get other people's money, ... So a SWOT analysis, this is a long answer for a short question, but a SWOT analysis is really good. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are my opportunities? And what are the threats? If you can do that at least quarterly, but probably monthly would be better, it's going to guide your whole next month to be able to fill some holes and capitalize on your strengths.
Yeah, that's a great answer, because you've been in the industry for coming up 30 years in both industries, and you're saying, I don't know everything, and the industry changes. We've just come out of going to virtual wholesale. So you're still prepared to do the hard yards and learn. So that's a great answer for anyone that's new. You never know everything, and even the veterans in the business realize that things evolve and change, market cycles change. So that is probably the biggest thunderbolt right there. Okay, what is your most embarrassing real estate story?
My most embarrassing real estate story was when I was showing some people, I was brand new in the business, and I was showing them some properties. I had to bring them way out of town. I was in my car, no cell phone yet. They were in their car. They had a cell phone. It was late at night on a very cold winter night in Minnesota. And I didn't know where I was. We didn't have GPS. And so I'm driving down this area that I didn't even know. And I finally had to turn off into a little shopping center. And to find out from the pizza place, do you know where this address is of this new construction model? I turn off the road. I didn't realize, because I have kind of bad night vision, I went right across the lawn of this shopping center. I was like, half a mile away from the driveway. The people went down the driveway and then turned around and came back, and they were like, "Are you on freaking drugs?" And then I had to borrow. We got there to the property, and the lockbox was frozen. I couldn't get it open, so I had to go to their window. He rolled it down like this far, and because I could hear his kids screaming in the background because they wanted to be fed and go to bed. And I said, "Can I borrow your cell phone? The lockbox is frozen. I can't get in there." And he was like,
What a night. What a night at the office, eh? Unbelievable.
nightmare.
One thing after the other. The other thing, what are you most proud of in real estate? What makes you chuffed when you think about it in real estate?
To be honest with you, just taking a risk. Just taking this risk, diving into it. We've owned probably, 8 or 10 properties, and, over time, and then, done a bunch of flips and done a bunch of where we bought it, and then we would do a quick clean out and sell it to another investor. Just taking that risk and building our wealth over time. I just think that's huge for a guy that came here, a poor actor that came here to Minnesota with about $1,200 in his and her pocket. We're doing okay.
Yeah, you're going okay, yeah, and you're enjoying yourself. So that's the main thing. You're living a good life with good people. Right. So the last question, which I personally want to know, is how did you actually become a coach at SMB, at Social Media Blueprint? How did that come about?
It actually started because I used to teach seminars. So because I didn't do acting anymore, and when I was a realtor here, I ran across somebody that worked for the city of St. Paul, and they said, they kind of looked at my personality and they went, "Do you ever teach? We've got a first-time homebuyer seminar that you could become part of if you wanted to teach kind of the realtor end of it." I went, "Sure." So that was my start of getting up in front of people. And this is my little bit of acting, since I'm not doing the acting thing anymore. But that's where I learned that I just have a passion for helping. And I think all of us that are really successful in the business, and all the coaches out there, we've just got a passion for helping. There's no reason anybody should be selfish with knowledge or a new tool or a great new marketing or a new marketing venue or a new marketing, vein. We just shouldn't be selfish. There's plenty to go around.
Yeah, have that service first mentality and that abundance mindset that everything will work out. And that's something that Nate has created at SMB from the top down, that all the coaches, that is a really big cultural part. So he should be commended for that. He's and you guys are all the same. So that's amazing. All right, I'll leave it there. We'll park it there. I really appreciate it. That was fantastic. And it's always a pleasure to pick your brain and get knowledge out of you. I know I was that guy in the class that's pestering you with questions like that, trying to get as much out of you as possible. So I hope that we've given the audience plenty to go back and watch the replay and be able to craft a bit of a system to go, obviously, approach realtors that are watching, approach investors, start working together as a team, have that abundance mindset. And then you've gone over a whole heap of other stuff in the industry as well. So thanks for coming on, sharing nearly 30 years of experience. Hang on, just before I go, I've got someone in the chat here. What's the minimum amount needed to start virtual wholesaling? I'm from the UK, so I'm not too sure of the tool costs if we were to wholesale in the US. Well, that's a bit of how long is a piece of string. Depends if you're going to do any coaching at the start, whether you're going to need a marketing budget. So you do, but there are other avenues. There are people out there that are doing free courses and bits and pieces. So if you reach out to me, Mubarak Hussain, I think it is. If you reach out to me, just check me out on Facebook or get me a message. I will help you locate these people because I know them personally, and then it's a good way to get started. And then I can actually guide you to other places if you want to do other stuff. So thanks for that question. That's it's a little bit hard to answer on air short because there's so many options you've got. It just depends on marketing budgets and all that sort of stuff. But thank you for that question. All right, let's just leave it there. Let's park it there. Thank you very much once again for coming on and sharing that knowledge. And because Brad Pitt's stunt double come on and threw some thunderbolts in the Thunderdome, you guys have been thunderstruck. Good night.